DraftKings Team Best Ball Breakdown. This is Panthers and Jaguars, episode 12. Oh, episode 13.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the HDFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. We're doing two-a-days. We're busting out the final team breakdowns for best ball as we get closer. We're within the last week. We got like 5 days left. Ellie, how many lineups do you have entered so far, and how many are you expecting to get entered this final week?
I think I'm just over 100. I don't know how many more I'm gonna get in during this final week. Like, honestly, I think I don't want to be blasphemous, but I think I might be done for the most part. I might just get a couple in to kind of ease my gambling addiction. But I'm kind of ready to shift into a showdown and stuff. And I know we're going to do that all next week. But we'll talk about it on this show a little bit. I just think the edge has shifted so much ever since cut day, really.
Yeah.
Like, everything's just so much tighter. I don't know, man. So long answer to say probably not as many drafts as I've had all summer, though.
Yeah, hopefully DraftKings releases some cool promotions to kind of get that Millie Maker filled. Like, I love overlay, but like I also want DraftKings to fill this shit so that next year it's worth their time and they put in, there's a bigger contest potentially. So Panthers, Jaguars, these are two juicy teams. I feel like the Panthers could be terrible. They could maybe overachieve. It all kind of depends on Bryce Young. There are some skill position players and some pass catchers that are kind of juicy, and they go later rounds and have some upside potential. Now, Jaguars, one of my highest exposed teams. Calvin Ridley, he has ever since camp he's going in the mid-20s now, which I don't know if I love. When he was going in the 40 range, I was scooping him up all day. But there are so many options and weapons on this team, it's kind of hard to choose. And when I do stack Jaguars, I usually stack heavy, which could be good, could be bad. But I have high hopes for Jaguars. So thoughts real quick, just general thoughts on either of these teams. What do you think about the Jaguars? And can the Panthers overachieve enough to where they can actually put up some fantasy points for us?
Listen, I think the Jaguars on definitely an upward trajectory. Jesus, I don't know why the fuck that was so hard for me to say. They look good, right? They had a good season last year, and Trevor Lawrence could easily be an MVP candidate this year. I think he finishes top 5. Yeah, man, I love trying to get to a little bit of Jacksonville. Where I've landed in my picks, I'm glad that you've gotten a little bit more exposure. You can hedge me a little bit. I'm going back and kind of looking at some of my exposure outside of Tank Bigsby. I'm in single digits for most of that. I think that's kind of just how it played out over the summer. But and then just real quick on the Panthers, their division sucks so bad that even if they are a shitty team, they could easily be in contention to, make a wild card spot or win their division, even get into the playoffs. So I think that'll keep them interested and, kind of an interesting team to keep an eye on throughout the season.
Yeah, and, one thing that we sometimes forget, or at least I don't think about as enough, is where is this game taking place? It's week 17. If we're stacking this game, if we want that playoff upside, like a DFS style lineup that we're going up against 1,000 other lineups. If we make it to that final round, this game is happening in Jacksonville on December 31st. So it's going to be beautiful, beautiful weather. We don't have to worry about, I know it's outside, it's not a dome game, but we don't have to worry about any crazy, cold, snow, anything like that, which is nice. All right, and look, this Panthers defense could be so bad the Jaguars could put up 35 points, and this stack could crush. Let's look at injury. So there's not really a whole lot of injuries to talk about on the Jacksonville side as of right now, but there's plenty to talk about for Carolina. So Miles Sanders has a groin injury. Seems like he's going to be fine for week 1. I don't think that's going to affect my opinion on him for drafting, and it hasn't. Chuba Hubbard has a little bit of an ankle sprain. It's kind of mysterious, but could he miss week 1? I don't know. But as of now, Chuba Hubbard's one of my zero running back darlings. And even just for depth, I'm getting way too much Chuba Hubbard. It kind of worries me because he doesn't seem like he's been trending at all. And I still think as a backup dude, he has a huge upside, and he could probably get 40% of the carries potentially. We'll see. Guys to worry about it. Terrace Marshall. I think his injury looked worse than maybe it was, but he could miss a few weeks. He's a 20th round guy anyways. He's one of these dudes that you're filling your stacks up with. I'm not taking him as a one-off, and I haven't really been taking him much since the injury. Look, Laviska Shenault, he's been one of my 20th round sort of. He's been an interesting guy to go with in later rounds. Mainly because look, they're using him in the backfield. At least they were during camp. We haven't seen a ton of info on him lately. He's in concussion protocol, so I don't know if he'll be ready for week 1. Like I said, it's a complete punt for 20th round. DJ Chark has a hamstring strain. He could miss a few weeks. Chark is one of these guys that's going a little higher. So I don't know. Anyways, thoughts on some of these injuries? Does anything concern you? Are you avoiding any of these guys when you're drafting right now?
Avoiding, no. I mean, like Chuba Hubbard would be the only one that I think I might be a little bit concerned about, just because he's had injury history in the past. And if you are doing a bunch of zero running back, like you can't really afford to have injuries with your random fucking deep backs, right? So that's something to be a little concerned. But again, like if that's impacting his ADP, then I don't know. Fuck it. You might have to just keep going with him. Outside of that, man, these injuries don't really concern me. Like Laviska Shenault, DJ Shark, their ADP kind of bakes in injury history. If you're relying on them to play like 15 games, like you really fucked your draft up, man. So like that's fine. I think you're fine just having those guys as weak. 17 boom bust guys, or even in the playoffs, if they come out and have one game next year with 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, they might do exactly what you needed them to. So they're fine with me. And Chenault, concussion, whatever. He runs like Anquan Bolden. He's gonna get concussions.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So narrative wise, obviously Jacksonville, high hopes this season. I think they should be a top 3 AFC team in my opinion. I know that that's kind of, I'm putting them up on a pedestal. I think that at this point, now we've gotten like a true, full, good year out of Trevor Lawrence with a real head coach. And we saw his potential. He came out and threw, 4 interceptions in the first half of that playoff game. They came back and won that game. So he's showing that he has some poise. Another year under his belt, and adding a guy like Calvin Ridley. Thoughts on Ridley here, bringing him in, and they still maintained all of their weapons from last year, and they added Tank Bigsby as well. This team should be absolutely stacked, and yeah, I would not be surprised if this was a top 5 offense. Thoughts on the offense here and guys like Tank Bigsby, and are you buying the Calvin Ridley going as high as he should be going?
I am buying Calvin Ridley. I'm buying this offense. I wish I had more in best ball, but I think that Calvin Ridley being on this team is going to really help Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk shouldn't be relied on as your number 1 wide receiver. And same with Zay Jones. Like him being a number 3 wide receiver might actually help them. Not from a fantasy perspective, but like people sleep on Calvin Ridley, man. He's one of the best route runners in the league. He's one of the fastest widers. He's special, man. So I'm excited to see what he does in this offense. He's really going to open up a lot of stuff for him.
Ever since I read that Players Journal letter that he wrote, Calvin Ridley, I've been a huge fan. I think he's going to crush this year. Bryce Young, sorry, somebody's mowing outside. Bryce Young, thoughts on him? Are you getting to a decent amount of stacks of him? Like, I'm always setting up these Jaguar stacks. Sometimes Trevor Lawrence gets pulled from me or sniped, and I usually end up running it back on the other side with a little bit of Bryce Young. Going super late, going in the 170 range. He's always a guy that you could probably stack. If you are missing a third quarterback, you could absolutely grab him and then stack late with him with guys like Hayden Hurst, Chuba Hubbard, and then some of these receivers we talked about. Are you getting to a lot of him?
Yeah, I was a little bit earlier on, and I get to him occasionally now. I'm sitting at about 9%. Again, like my exposures have kind of just balanced out just because I've been drafting so much over the past 3 months, right? So like I kind of feel like everything's softening up a bit, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, like at 9%, I like him, and he's got rushing upside. He's very elusive. He's gonna be like not this is a terrible way to say this. We were talking about Lamar Jackson in the way that he avoids hits. Bryce Young is very good at that kind of stuff too. So the upside that you get there from a team that really isn't expecting to do anything, let's be honest, like his upside is offensive rookie of the year. Like the dude went Heisman. So if he has some weapons on that team. So I do think that he's worth getting. If you're comfortable taking guys like Jordan Love, even Jimmy G, like you probably should be balancing out with a little exposure to Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. Like those are the guys with actual ceilings and rushing upside that can really show up towards the end of the year too. Like when there's less to play for, those are rookies like trying to get in rhythm. So I don't know. That's a long rant for this part of the show.
I will say I am worried. I was worried when I first saw him in the rookie camp, and he looked like Deuce Vaughn out there. Like he was so tiny. I'm not super worried about it. I mean, like, come on, we saw what Kyler Murray can do. He's a short dude. We saw how much of a weapon he can be. So I'm not opposed to getting my fair share of him. Let's do this breakdown. Let's just do it. Break it down. All right, so Calvin Ridley is going at around pick 23. In June, he was going in the 30s, and before that, he was going even, in the 40s. So, thoughts here. Biggest thing here, we talked about Calvin Ridley. We both like Calvin Ridley, but the biggest thing here is Travis Etienne. I'm almost like semi-fading him simply because him going at pick 35. Now you got Tank Bigsby in there. I don't know what the splits are going to be. Travis Etienne, I think he has good upside, but I'm not a huge fan. Like, tell me I'm wrong, or tell me your thoughts on Etienne here.
My thoughts on Etienne is he is always at pick 34, 35, or 36. So you don't even need to consciously fade him or target him. If you feel you're too low on him, you can just go get him in the next draft, right? He's going to be in a certain spot pretty much every time you draft. And that's about how I feel about him. I don't like paying up for running backs, but I do have a little bit of exposure just because I have so much exposure to Tank Bigsby. If Tank doesn't work out, then that means Travis Etienne hopefully had a good season. So, it's probably best to balance that exposure out a little bit, but he's so easy to get to, man, that I don't hate it if you do. I just prefer other people in that range.
So thoughts on it, let's say you get Ridley. Let's say you have the opportunity to get Christian Kirk. Is that too much draft equity at the top there in those first couple rounds? And let's say you're able to get Trevor Lawrence. I think it's an incredible stack. But are you choosing to go Ridley or Kirk and then fill it in with Zay Jones and maybe Evan Ingram? Like, what are you comfortable with as far as stacks with Trevor Lawrence here?
I think you just prioritize Calvin Kirk and Trevor Lawrence if you're able to do that. Otherwise, if you got Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence, that's fine by itself. And I'm passing on the tight end. I'm looking more towards Zay Jones in that 125 range, right? Evan Ingram, he's definitely a smash. Like he's a smasher. He's boomer bust. Like he's the epitome of it. He had a couple games where he got involved last year, but like that, this is just Calvin Ridley is the guy who's going to have, 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. So, it's going to soften some of the fantasy production some of these other guys get just because he's able to do so much with the ball. And, I don't know, man, that might be a little bit bold of a statement, but they're still going to throw for 4,500 plus yards. But I just think Calvin Ridley is very much going to be a beneficiary of that. And probably Christian Kirk, too, and Zay Jones. I just don't know that Evan Ingram is going to continue to be the guy that's getting fed.
Yeah, you'd think that, look, one of these guys is going to have a big downfall in targets, you'd think. Is it Christian Kirk? Is it Zay Jones? Is it Evan Ingram? I just don't have the answer to that. I feel like getting equal shares of all these guys, to me, feels like the right thing to do. If they're there, if they're available for me, I have no problem stacking 3, maybe even 4 guys in this stack. Because I feel like over the course of the whole season, they're all going to get their due, especially if they're double teaming Calvin Ridley or if they're trying to stop Christian Kirk. Zay Jones as a number 3 wide receiver or a number 3 pass catching option, that's pretty impressive based on what we've seen from him. And then having Evan Ingram run around as another wide receiver who's getting paid as a tight end is it just makes this team so dangerous. And we're not even mentioning Etienne or Tank. So Sanders has dropped like 21 spots. I remember back when you could get Trevor Lawrence and Sanders right back to back if you're number one pick, or if you're in the 12 range and you can pick back to back, you could get both of those guys back to back as a run back. Now they've separated quite a bit. Miles Sanders is going in the 80s. That seems like it came out of nowhere. I mean, I know he had a little injury issue. Why is he dropped this much? Like, thoughts on that?
I just think that people are expecting a little bit more of a timeshare, maybe a little bit less involved in the running game, and some of that work going to Chuba. Uh, I don't mind Miles Sanders. I think in this range that he slipped to, he's a little bit more palatable than he was, excuse me, in the 60s, right? Um, but even then, like the guys he's going around is Cortland Sutton, Brandon Cooks, JSN, Hollywood Brown, David Montgomery. Like I don't know, man. Like I still kind of like David Montgomery a little bit better than Miles Sanders. Uh, Cortland Sutton, especially with what's the question marks with Judy and some of the stuff we talked about on the last show. There's just other guys in that range that I like a little bit more, but just because he slipped a little bit, I'm more willing to pull the trigger on him, especially since my exposure to those other guys I like more, it's a little bit higher, so I probably should balance it out, to be honest.
A guy like Adam Thielen actually impressed me in one of those finals preseason games. I didn't know what to expect from Thielen. Like, is this a situation where an aging wide receiver moves to a new team? He's got a rookie quarterback. Is this just one of these, fall off the cliff type of seasons for him? And it very well could be, but I didn't see like a lot of downside in some of these games when he's out there. He looks pretty good. He's catching the ball. It seems like he's a leader when it comes to just this team in general, especially the offense. Thoughts on Thielen here? He's sticking right around that 130 range. I kind of been grabbing him quite a bit, and he's one of these guys that will crater. He'll fall like 10, 15 picks past ADP because nobody wants to touch him. I think now that we saw him perform pretty good in the preseason, or at least he wasn't just sitting on the bench the whole time, I think that I'm a little bit more comfortable taking him. But a guy like, Jonathan Mingo has absolutely fallen off a cliff too as a rookie. So Thielen, Mingo, Chark, like, even Laviska Shenault at the very end of the draft. Thoughts on these guys? Like, who are you like comfortable grabbing, if anybody?
Earlier on, I was taking a little bit more Adam Thielen, but that's mostly because of how close him and Jonathan Mingo were in ADP. It was like 5 to 10 picks difference at one point. So like I think it was again, yeah. In June, it was a lot easier to get a little bit more Adam Thielen, but now I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting to get Jonathan Mingo at 160. Like he could easily be the team's wide receiver one by like week 4, right? That's what he's there to do, is be Bryce Young's connection, his number one target. So getting him at 160 and later, to me that's excellent. That's your wide receiver 7 or 8 by now. So you have just elite upside, I think there. And then again, DJ Shark, he's kind of stayed pretty consistent in his ADP. I'm just going to say the same thing I said about Thielen and Mingo. When they were closer, it was much easier to just wait to get to DJ Shark. But now that Mingo's here again, like I'm leaning more towards Mingo. But that's really kind of how I'm approaching the wide receivers for Carolina right now.
So how much Chuba Hubbard do you have? Because like I said, I have so much of him. I have like probably 15+% of him at running back. He's one of my higher owned running backs. Does scare me that he's fallen a little bit, and it does scare me that he does have some injury history, and he's injured currently. It's not terrible, but an ankle sprain could linger. Thoughts on Hubbard? Thoughts on Hayden Hurst here, grabbing him as like a tight end 3, or if you're doing like a punt tight end situation, grabbing him. He's a number 1 tight end with a rookie quarterback. You got to think that, this offense is going to try to utilize a tight end, especially in the red zone with a rookie guy.
Yeah, man. So Chuba Hubbard, I have 11%. I have 12% Tank Bigsby. So again, I'm fairly balanced. I'm trying not to get too crazy in some of these, some of these deeper picks. I'm trying to keep it under 15% if at all possible. But Hayden Hurst is another guy I'm very interested in. He's one of the reasons I'm comfortable not taking a tight end so early, right? Like I'd honestly take him over Evan Ingram just because I know he's going to be available in this range, amongst other guys like Hunter Henry. Dawson Knox is still going around 180, 175. Like these are guys that are going to get consistent work in their offenses. Ferguson, Musgrave, like, and are about I think are about as capable as putting up a 2 touchdown, 120-yard game as Evan Ingram is, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, he's one of those reasons that I've been comfortable doing my tight end punt drafts. Now, I think I'm close to like 6 or 7% there, but that's because there's so many tight end punts that you can do. I'm able to rotate several in there.
So we haven't talked much about Tank Bigsby. A little bit. We've sort of look. Tank Bigsby to me is like one of my favorite high upside guys. He's a big dude. He's going to be utilized on the goal line. He's also been, I think he's going to get utilized in the pass game a bit. Like where do you think the splits are going to come in here with Travis Etienne? I mean, I know Etienne is on paper a pretty damn good option, but man, Tank Bigsby is one of these guys. He was going, in the 160 range. I think I was getting him in the 180, like 190 range back in the day before he started showing up at camp and people started realizing, holy shit, this guy is fucking good, man. So thoughts on Bigsby here, man? Like I am way over the field on him and I'm not too scared about it.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I have 12%. I've slowed down a little bit on him just because his ADP has gone as high as it has. He's up there with like Jalen Warren, like, and even he's the opposite of Chuba and Gus Edwards, right? We know that these backups are going to get 30 to 45% of the volume just because of how the offense is set up. Even ETN, right? There's no reason to put him in or give him 95% of the touches. He's coming off of a pretty severe knee injury, right? Ease him back into the season. It's a longer season now, so those are all things that I think just benefit Tank Bigsby. He's a little bit bigger. Maybe they involve him in some more of the pass blocking situations, and you know how offenses are, man. You got to reward your big guys for doing the right thing. So maybe he gets a couple goal line carries. But again, this offense is just it's expected to be awesome. So as long as you're not like fucking getting way overexposed to guys like Dearness Johnson, I think you're pretty okay getting guys are going to see the field.
Speaking of some of these guys here at the end of the draft, have you been getting into any of these guys? Like, have you been like Laviska Shenault is always one of these fun, round 20 guys that you can grab because he does have some interesting upside. Most likely, he's just not going to pay off. So getting him in the 20th round maybe is okay. I'm not getting him as like a one-off without the stacks. I'm usually trying to like get by that point in the draft, trying to get another run back for my Jacksonville stacks, and that's probably fine. But who are you getting to here? Like, are you getting to any Terrace Marshall? His ADP has kind of gone down a little bit since the injury. Are you getting to any Jamal Agnew like as a weird 20th round? I don't know. I'm not tending to get to these guys much anymore.
Yeah, Terrace Marshall, I think I have one lineup with him, but his leg is broken or some shit. Like, don't draft him. Jamal Agnew, I think I also have one with him. I have one with Jermichael Hasty. Obviously, we could see whatever we see with Tank, but we know that they like Jermichael Hasty down there. So if Tank isn't what he's supposed to be, he will get some runs. So I do think that Hasty is a free guy to take in round 20, and then Laviska Shenault. And then lastly, if your punt tight end strategy didn't go great and Tommy Tremble's still there, like expect a 0, but he could easily have a game where he has 3 receptions, 8 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that's
exactly
all I got to say there.
All right, let's look at a lineup here. I think I drafted this like 2 days ago. This is a Jaguars 2v2, or I guess 3 with the quarterback here. And a Miami stack with a Baltimore run back. I got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mark Andrews to start. Then Travis Etienne. So I have a Trevor Lawrence, Etienne, Zay Jones stack going there with the Chuba Hubbard and DJ Chark run back. Fine. I have so many of these different combinations. I just picked kind of the most recent one. This is a 2-6-9-3. In theory, I probably should have got a third quarterback here. When you get a guy like Trevor Lawrence, Tua has the injury history. This would probably be a nice 20th round Mike White or Skylar Thompson pick up here at the end. But look, if you see, I got Mark Andrews in the third round there, and then I got Dawson Knox and Isaiah Likely in the 17th, 18th round. Jameson Williams, he fell quite a bit. And he's my 7th wide receiver. That's like a perfect place to grab Jameson Williams as like a guy you don't really need to pay off. Thoughts on this lineup here, man? Obviously, you're a huge Miami, Baltimore guy, and this one is a pretty decent stack here. Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and who else did I get? Did I get a running back here? Who else did I get for Miami? I can't see. These things are so named. Oh, Cedric Wilson in the 20th round.
Cedric Wilson, and then Isaiah Likely. Yeah, I like it, man. I like what you got here. I like that you got Jameson Williams as your wide receiver 7. Like, he continues to slip, and I know that it's probably stupid to keep buying on him, but a wide receiver 7, man, if he comes back and does anything in the second half of the year, it's just fine. And the last point here is I don't think you need a third quarterback between Trevor and Tua. You should be fine. If those guys go down, you're fucked anyway.
Yeah. If Trevor Lawrence misses 6 games, that lineup's dead. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So final thoughts on this. Panthers, Jaguars. We're coming to the end here. This is one of my favorite stacks, week 17 stacks to get. It's not super hard to get it. It's getting a little harder as some of these Jacksonville Jaguar guys have risen. Thoughts as we're going out here. Advice to avoid or not to do for some of these drafts as we finish this last week.
Yeah, just don't get fooled by ADP at this point. Like, ADP's been very very weird. It's been moving up and down. If you got a guy that you think is going to get run, feel free to draft him. Like, it's okay to reach a little bit more now. I think you kind of just gotta adapt to the draft that you're in and take whatever feels right.
So we're doing 2-a-days here. We're going to do immediately after we're done with this, we're going to record. What do you want to do? You want to do New England, Buffalo? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that works.
All right. So the next episode you're going to see is New England, Buffalo. We'll be done with these by Monday morning. Have those posted, and then we're going to ramp up NFL season showdown and main slate. We will see you guys later. Throw us a like and subscribe on this video. We appreciate you.